Hi, it's Katrina. Number 10. The Volcano of Damped. Harda Dam, or the Volcano of Damped, is a huge crater in the country of Yemen that not many people have heard of. It rises along the outskirts of the city and looks like something you might expect to find on an alien planet. However, it's such a normal thing for the townspeople that they've built houses along the base of it. There's even a bunch of scrapped vehicles and shacks built right underneath its opening. But the crater isn't a place you'd want to mess around. It's a volcanic mountain, and inside the Great Hole is a lake of hot sulfur. Many young adventurers who have tried exploring the volcano have wound up dead. It's a popular place for people to take selfies, but unfortunately, not everyone survives the attempt. There's no shortage of stories of young people who have tumbled backwards into the crater, boiling themselves alive in the sulfur. You also have the fact that the town is right next to this crater that can eject gas, lava, and rocks whenever it feels like it. Would you risk it? Let me know in the comments below. Number 9. Fatal Paradise. Madidi National Park in Bolivia is a deadly paradise, one of the most richly diverse and yet mortally dangerous places on the planet. It was inside this national park where famous Israeli backpacker Yossi Ginsberg got lost in 1981. Yossi and a group of friends wandered into the jungle looking for an uncontacted indigenous tribe as well as undiscovered gold. But instead, they got lost. They ran out of food and decided to split up, which nearly killed them all. 14 years later, the very same jungle the young men almost died in was turned into Madidi National Park. It covers an area of over 7,000 square miles and is believed to be one of the most biologically diverse places left in the entire world. But it's all that diversity that makes it such a dangerous place. During the 3 weeks that Yossi Ginsberg was stuck in the jungle, he faced off against prowling jaguars and hungry fire ants, as well as disease-carrying bugs. The protected natural reserve is home to about 270 types of mammals and over 500 different species of fish. It's also inhabited by several other kinds of amphibians and reptiles, and shockingly, there's believed to be about 120,000 different species of insects. If the bugs don't infect you with disease and the predators don't bite you in your sleep, there is always the chance that you could get washed away in a torrential downpour. The rainy season turns the mountain roads into washed-out death traps. Number 8. Africa's Exploding Lake. There is a lake in Africa that could explode at any moment. It's on the verge of releasing an immense cloud of gas that could go on to suffocate millions of people nearby. Scientists still don't know when it's going to happen or how many people will be affected. They are also unsure what the fallout from the exploding lake will look like. It's called Lake Kivu, and it contains 14 cubic miles of methane, along with over 71 cubic miles of dissolved carbon dioxide. The methane also happens to be laced with toxic hydrogen sulfide. The lake, although aesthetically pleasing and naturally beautiful, is a ticking time bomb. It sits between the Democratic Republic of Congo and Rwanda and could explode at any moment. If the lake does detonate, a phenomenon scientists call a limnic eruption, the lake will send a massive amount of gas into the atmosphere. That toxic gas will also spread throughout the nearby valleys like a dense, unstoppable fog. The fog of toxic gas will suck the oxygen out of millions of people's lungs, creating one of the worst disasters in human history. Many innocent people could be caught in the cloud, creating a death toll worse than any other natural disaster on record. Right now, the lake is considered to be stable, but all it takes is a small earthquake or a strong volcanic eruption to trigger a gas release, finally making Lake Kivu explode. Scientists are currently trying to figure out how they can remove the gas from the lake without causing anyone harm. But this is a job that might not be finished in time, especially since it's been estimated to cost over $50 billion. And now for number 7. But first, it's shoutout time! Big thank you to Amber Huff and Mike Chiari for supporting this channel. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already for more videos like these. Number 7. Fraser Island. Fraser Island in Australia is home to what many experts claim is the most dangerous beach in the world. It looks like a paradise in pictures with its turquoise waters and white sandy beaches, but the island is also crawling with dangers. Amidst the sand dunes and lush rainforests are monsters waiting around every turn to kill you. Yet despite the danger, Fraser Island has been inhabited for an estimated 5,000 years. It was home to the indigenous Butchula people prior to its discovery by British explorer James Cook in 1770. The indigenous people knew of the dangers and understood how to avoid them. I've heard people go there all the time, but for curious tourists, the threats aren't so obvious. You'll definitely want to avoid the water here. The riptides are so strong, they can break a man's neck before he's dragged deep underwater and drowned. 75 Mile Beach is also home to an abundance of coastline-lurking sharks. And if a shark bites off your leg, you're out of luck because there are no hospitals. The only way to get help is by calling for a helicopter. Dingoes are also native to Fraser Island, and they can typically be found on the beaches at any point of the day. They've been known to go after humans, especially children, which puts everyone at risk. The waters are also inhabited by terrifying blue bottle jellyfish and the fatal irukandji jellyfish. Have you been here before? Any tips or tricks? Let us know in the comments below. Number 6. The Sahel. The term hunger belt was coined in 1984 when the world's attention was drawn to the mass starvation happening in Africa. A drought of unimaginable proportions affected a region called the Sahel. The Sahel is a massive strip that crosses Africa from west to east, going all the way from the Red Sea to the Atlantic Ocean. It's a miserable place, so dry and desolate that there isn't a single blade of grass. Those who lived here in the 1980s saw their livestock die and all sources of food go extinct. There was a horrible famine that broke out as a result, and it was the first time the world learned about desertification. That's when a previously forested and lush region suddenly goes dry and becomes a desert. However, the 1980s weren't the first time the Sahel region suffered a drought. Ever since records started being kept at the beginning of the 20th century, the area has been prone to wild shifts in its weather. The first recorded drought was in 1915, prompting locals to move south in search of more fertile ground. Then, in the 1960s, the rain came back and so did the farmers. But only 20 years later, the drought returned. These days, the Sahel is still one of the most dangerous places in the world for the simple fact that there's almost no food to eat. The strip of land is a kind of border between the Sahara Desert to the north and the fertile jungles to the south. It's not quite as barren as the desert, and nowhere near as lush as the savannas. The rain comes and goes, and so too do the droughts. Number 5. The Haunted Daring Wood. The woodlands surrounding the village of Pluckley in England are known as the Daring Woods. According to legends, it's one of the most dangerous woodlands in all of Britain. Pluckley itself is reported to be the most haunted village in the country. For centuries, it's been the source of ghost stories and folklore. The woodlands are said to be haunted by the ghost of a highway robber who was captured by the townsfolk and decapitated in the 18th century. But ghost stories and tall tales aren't the only things going on in the Daring Woods. Since the beginning of the 20th century, far more terrifying things have been found happening here. Unexplained deaths and mysterious disappearances have all been connected to Daring Wood. Locals reported seeing strange lights and sounds on Halloween night in 1948. The next morning, a dog walker came across the corpses of 20 people scattered amongst the leaves. The bodies of the victims showed no signs of struggle, and the autopsies failed to show any obvious cause of death. Police ruled that the 20 victims died from carbon monoxide poisoning and closed the investigation. They were criticized for covering up a sinister mystery, although the massacre has never been solved. Nobody knows what's wrong with the Daring Woods, or as the locals say, the Screaming Woods. Number 4. The Underwater Volcano. The Hunga Tonga Hunga Ha'apai volcano was responsible for the largest recorded volcanic eruption in history. It blew its top on January 15, 2022, but it was only recently that a team of marine geologists from New Zealand confirmed the eruption to be the largest on record. It was so big that it triggered a devastating tsunami, and the explosion of the volcano created a sonic boom that went around the world twice. Luckily for us, the volcano is underwater. If this thing was on land and within reach of a populated area, it could have had devastating consequences. And even though it erupted underneath the ocean, the force of it was still powerful enough to shoot ash and steam into the atmosphere. It was a team of researchers from the New Zealand National Institute for Water and Atmospheric Research who investigated the eruption. Using underwater robots, they determined that the Tongan volcano displaced about 2.6 million Olympic-sized pools worth of sea floor, the equivalent of 2 cubic miles. It was also the first eruption to break into the mesosphere. Kevin McKay, one of the researchers, called it a shotgun blast to the sky. For the people of Tonga, the eruption was intense and nerve-wracking, though it didn't cause any significant damage. But who knows what will happen if the volcano erupts again, maybe even with more force than the first time. The island of Tonga could be completely destroyed. Number 3. The Skeleton Coast. The Skeleton Coast stretches for a whopping 976 miles, and it has one of the most inhospitable and deadly landscapes of anywhere in the world. It's located where the Atlantic Ocean crashes into the Namibian desert. It's one of the only places on the planet where the desert flows straight into the sea. The Skeleton Coast was perilous for seafarers for centuries, with its coastline littered with the bones of dead animals and people. Portuguese explorers used to call it the Gates of Hell in the 15th century, or the land God made in anger. The current that runs alongside the coast is so strong that even if you're only swimming in water up to your knees, you can get swept over 100 miles from the shoreline. And even if you could somehow swim back to shore, you would have a hard time making it past the 11 species of shark that live along the coast. The shoreline is frequently obscured behind a thick fog that makes navigation nearly impossible without modern instruments. For sailors in the 15th century, crashing into the Skeleton Coast was a very real threat. Even if they survived the sinking of the ship and made it to shore, they found themselves in a desert with no hope of survival. The sand dunes tower over the ocean like great golden mountains, and within the rolling sand hills is an unbearable heat. The area is also heavily patrolled by packs of hyenas and prides of lions searching for food. If you don't get eaten, you'll certainly die of thirst or be cooked alive by the sun. Number 2. Jacob's Well. One of the most dangerous swimming holes in the world can be found in central Texas. In the village of Wimberley in Hill Country, Jacob's Well is a popular watering hole where locals can stay cool in the summer months. It's also a dangerous portal to an underwater graveyard where 12 scuba divers have perished. The hole took so many lives that the local government had to close it down, sealing it off forever. You can now only go 40 feet deep before you hit a metal gate. In order to gain access to the watering hole, you have to be a specially permitted scientific diver. There is no more recreational diving because Hill Country doesn't want to deal with any more deaths. Jacob's Well is the entrance to one of the longest underwater systems on the planet. 100 feet down is the opening to a cavern, one that goes on twisting and turning in such a way that most divers become confused and disoriented. There are tunnels and pathways in the cavern that make it almost impossible to successfully navigate. Number 1. The Winds of Mount Washington. On April 12, 1934, staff at the Mount Washington Observatory in New Hampshire recorded the fastest wind gust in history at 231 miles per hour, making Mount Washington the windiest place in the world. The mountain kept the record for 62 years until 1996. That was when an unmanned instrument station located in Barrow Island, Australia, recorded a wind gust of 253 miles per hour during a cyclone. Mount Washington isn't a large mountain when put up against some of the other great behemoths in North America. However, it can be one of the deadliest places in the world, with significant cold and snow along with severe icing. There are definitely colder places out there, but Mount Washington's combination of snow, wind, and ice make it more severe than most. It was a miracle that nobody was blown off the mountain and sent off like a kite during these strong winds in 1934, when the second fastest wind gust in history was recorded. Thanks for watching! Which of these terrifying destinations would you dare to visit? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you soon! Bye!